Well, greetings, vinyl community. I've always wanted to be able to do some videos sitting in front of my vinyl collection like the cool kids do, and guess what? I did a little rearranging, and here it is. So today I've got a little stack of records to talk about, and I want to start with some reissues from the Superior Viaduct label and its subsidiary Antarctica Starts Here. And these first couple of albums were items that have been on my want list for a long time. Really been looking for a nice mint copy of this and being very particular about the cover because I love this cover so much. This is Transcendence by Alice Coltrane, 1977. This is an album of two halves. I think I say that a lot, meaning that the two sides have very distinct characters. Side one is a more chamber music approach, with Alice being accompanied by just a string quartet or quintet on two of the three tracks, and the third being her solo. The second side is chants. It's Hindu chants done up in a kind of gospel style, gospel come Indian, and it's wonderful. It won't be for everybody, but I love this one. As I say, I've been looking for this album for a long time, would still like to get the original. It's hard to get if you're fussy about this cover, because most of the copies you see either are cutouts with a saw cut or have a promo sticker on the front. So, Alice Coltrane, 1977. This is on the Antarctica Starts Here label. It has this nice insert with liner notes. Also from the Antarctica Starts Here label, another one I've been looking for an original for some time, Mwandishi, the first album by the Mwandishi Band from Herbie Hancock. This is from 1971. The great Julian Priester, Peppo Mtoto on trombone, and also composing the lengthy piece that takes up side two. Buster Williams on bass, Billy Hart on drums, Eddie Henderson on trumpet, and the fantastic Benny Maupin on bass clarinet and alto flute, Ndugu Liam Chankler on drums and percussion, guest appearances by Jose Chapito Arias from Santana, congas and timbales, and Ronnie Montrose on guitar. This is one that, as I say, I've been trying to find the original, again being a little fussy about the cover. I actually ran into a copy the last time I was in Berkeley that was marked at a really reasonable price. The cover looked pretty nice. I pulled out the disc and, oh hell no. It looked like somebody had been ice skating on it. So this is a nice one to have again. Nice little insert, photo of Herbie, and liner notes about the band. And that's just brilliant, brilliant, spacey early fusion. Another classic album reissued on the Superior Viaduct label is this 1963 album from Charles Mingus, The Black Saint and the Sinner Lady, originally on Impulse. And they reproduce the gatefold with amazing liner notes from Mingus. This is a great big band, long-form composition in 6 movements, described with different dance configurations. So it's apparently also envisioned as a ballet. We've got a 4-piece brass section of Rolf Erickson and Richard Williams on trumpets, Quentin Jackson on trombones, and Don Butterfield on tuba. Saxophones, Jerome Richardson, Dick Hafer, and Charles Mariano. Jackie Bayard on piano. Jay Berliner on guitar, providing some cool flamenco moves in there. Mingus himself on bass and piano, and the ever-faithful Danny Richmond on drums. It's a great instance of jazz as classical music, and I believe that I have kind of a feel of Frank Zappa for this. I think this is one that distinctly influenced Zappa. In particular, there's just a quick lick that Zappa called the hook that is borrowed from this piece. And a couple of albums on the Arista Freedom label. This is Ted Curson, Tears for Dolphy, of course referring to Eric Dolphy, with whom Ted Curson played in Charles Mingus's band. In particular, on this album, Charles Mingus Presents Charles Mingus, which is a great favorite of mine. This is the one with the classic announcement by Mingus where he pretends, although it's a studio recording, he pretends it's a live recording, and he tells everyone in the club, don't applaud, don't rattle the ice in your drinks, I don't want to hear any cash registers ringing, to excuse the absence of any club noise. But this was the quartet of Eric Dolphy on alto and bass clarinet, Ted Curson on trumpet, Danny Richmond on drums, and Mingus on bass. And this includes the vocal version of Fables of Faubus, which is my all-time favorite Mingus composition. So this is the pianoless quartet configuration with two horns and bass and drums. So this is the same kind of approach. This is from 1964, recorded August 1st, 1964, just shortly after Dolphy's death in June. And this is Ted Curson on trumpet and piccolo trumpet, Bill Barron on tenor sax and clarinet, Herb Bushler on bass, and Dick Burke on drums. Highlight of this is definitely the title track, Tears for Dolphy, a wonderful ballad piece and a beautiful tribute to the fallen great. Also on the Arista Freedom label, this 1974 recording from the pianist Randy Weston, Carnival. This consists of 3 lengthy tracks. Title track, Carnival, very Caribbean sound, in between Calypso and New Orleans Mardi Gras reminiscences. There's a line in it, though, that I find very distracting because it sounds like a line from the Marine Corps hymn, and I keep expecting it to go into From the Halls of Montezuma to the Shores of Tripoli. That's followed by a tribute to Duke Ellington, solo piano pastiche borrowing from Ellington themes, and side 2 is taken up with Mystery of Love, a composition by Guy Warren from Ghana. And personnel on this is Randy Weston on piano, Billy Harper on tenor sax and flute, William Allen on bass, Don Moy from the Art Ensemble of Chicago on drums, and congas and percussion Steve Barrios. And you're hearing this in the background right now. And this next one, the next couple of albums are ones that I actually picked up at my local vinyl shop. This first one I picked up, I have to admit, largely because of the cover. And this was shown recently by Mama Bear Vinyl, who has a pretty new channel. I'll put a link to her channel below. But I just love this cover. Charlie Bird, Birdland. Lots of little birds doing various things and interacting in various ways with the musical notes and rests. This is from 1966 and features a lot of Charlie Bird's customary bossa nova approach. Includes a version of the classic Meditation and 2 songs from Luis Bonfa's movie score to Black Orpheus. One of the great movies that I highly recommend. Mania de Carnival, also known as just Black Orpheus, also known as A Day in the Life of a Fool, and Samba de Orpheus. Also, Work Song, the Cannonball Adderley number, Girl by the Beatles. And this is on the 2i Columbia label, mono pressing. And then also from that store I picked up Everyone knows Days of Future Past, the Moody Blues. What's cool about this copy is that it is an original 1967 pressing. The album was remixed in the 70s when Nights in White Satin sort of became a hit, delayed hit in the early 70s. The album was reissued, and it was found that the original tapes were deteriorated. So all versions since then have been the remix. There was a CD issue of the original mix, but that was taken from a vinyl source. So it's very cool to get a copy with the original mix. In quite nice condition. I mean, look at how excellent that cover is. It was only a few dollars, so that was nice to get. The Moody Blues brings us to the prog rock world. So here's the great 1974 album by Focus, Hamburger Concerto. This is their 5th album overall, 4th studio album. A lot of classical influence on here. As usual, it's mostly instrumental. Some beautiful melodies in the track La Cathédrale de Strasbourg. So there's a bit of singing in that. The epic piece that covers side 2, the title track Hamburger Concerto, also includes some of Thijs van Leer's zany vocalizing, including a reprise of the yodeling from Hocus Pocus, as well as a Dutch hymn, apparently a Christmas hymn. The main theme that starts out the piece is actually variations on a theme by Haydn from Brahms, and the theme itself was actually probably not by Haydn, but Brahms thought it was, so who am I to argue with good old Johannes? Also from 1974, a very fertile year for prog rock, the 2nd album by Griffin, Midnight Mushrumps. This is on the Transatlantic label. And again, is very classical in its influence and approach. And again, features a sidelong piece, in this a sidelong title track, I should say. Midnight Mushrumps is a 19-minute long piece, completely instrumental and featuring a lot of the band's medieval instruments, recorders and crumb horns, harpsichords, alongside the bassoon and guitars and percussion. And this being their 2nd album, it's a transition between the completely acoustic 1st album, the very folk-based album, and the very electric prog rock 2nd album. This was the they'd expanded for this one with a 5th member playing bass. They were a quartet on that 1st album. And there's only one track that really goes back to the folk style, the Plowboy's Dream, traditional arranged Griffin. And otherwise, this has very strong Baroque and Renaissance feel to it. Finally, 2 albums of avant-garde new music created by women composers. And the first is Glass World of Annia Lockwood, an exploration into the complexity of sounds drawn exclusively from glass. This is a reissue. The original LP was from 1970. This is on the États-Unis label, again associated with Superior Viaduct. The album includes a little photo card and is pressed, as is appropriate for the glass sound source, on clear vinyl. All of the sounds were made from glass artifacts. None of them were actually produced as instruments or shaped to be instruments. Everything was just pieces of glass actually produced, or else scraps that Annia Lockwood repurposed to produce the sounds. So As you might expect, it is very abstract. There's no tonal musical approach to this. Finally, an album that I was really knocked out to find at a shop in San Francisco, Tape Songs by Joni Labarbara, the great vocalist. This includes 2 compositions by Labarbara herself and one by John Cage. The John Cage piece is a 13.5-minute interpretation of Solo for Voice 45, and Cage himself provides one of his mesostics on Joni Labarbara's name for the liner notes. First piece on this is a trip. It's called Cathing, and it is a reaction to a very dismissive comment made by Kathy Berberian in an interview where she derides new music singers as being not really musical or not really singers. And Joni Labarbara takes that interview and slices it up into a sound vocal piece. So Cathing is quite scathing. I'm not sure if it's meant to be pronounced that way. And finally, side 2 is taken up by a piece called Thunder. This is for Joni Labarbara's voice and effects and 2 timpani players. And this is an original, this has been reissued, but this is an original copy on the Chiaroscuro label. So that's it for now. Thank you very much for watching. Be well. Talk with you again soon. Bye-bye for now.